Welcome to Breaking Par with Bernard Sheridan, the golf podcast that interviews the best and brightest minds in the golf industry. Now, here's your host, Bernard Sheridan.
Lisa, welcome back to Breaking Par. Thanks so much for coming on the show today.
I'm absolutely thrilled, honored to be back for a second appearance on Breaking Par.
So, a lot of things have happened since you were on the show last. So give us a little bit of insight into some of the crazy things that have happened to you. And I know, too, that you're a lot busier than you were the last time we spoke.
Well, it's crazy. You know, I've been doing this for 17 years. I've been competing in the sport of long drive. And yeah, there's been so many exciting changes. So it's so neat to see all the wonderful opportunities. One of the big changes, I was a Nike athlete for 11 years. And then last August, Nike pulled out of the equipment industry, which was quite a surprise and shock. So I had an opportunity to meet with Callaway Golf. Thrilled. Callaway is a huge sponsor of long drive. And they were my first choice of which equipment company I would like to go with. So I was over the moon when I signed with Callaway last year. And so in the 2017 season was my first year using the Callaway equipment full time. And it was amazing. So I used the Epic driver and knocked it out of the park. I won my 8th Canadian title, which was very exciting because, you know, being a mom, I think I was one of the only moms in the field, if not the only mom. So, you know, that was pretty cool, is that, you know, here I can compete against 20-year-old girls, but still remain competitive. And since I last was on Breaking Par, everyone kept asking me. I do a lot of corporate and charity golf tournaments and clinics, and people said, "Oh wow, Lisa, I wish I had your clinic on video," because so many people said they had added tremendous distance or accuracy from after watching my clinics. And so I finally did that last year. I recorded my first Lisa Longball instructional video, so that's available on my website, which is lisalongball.com. And that was a big project, and I was so proud to get that done. So that was huge.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Thank you.
And that's some major things that have happened, really. I mean, an equipment change, and so when you did the equipment change, was it something that you adapted to immediately, or was it something that took a little bit of getting used to? And what did you go through in the process? Did you go out to Callaway and did they do a big fitting for you and all that? I mean, what really happened?
Well, it's a good point, because some people do have a real issue when they end up switching equipment. But for me, I don't know if it was the Epic driver or what, but I liked the sound of it. So the acoustics were amazing, the feel of it. So it was a very, very easy transition. We wanted it to be pretty immediate. So instead of flying down to Carlsbad immediately, I had a local rep here. I live in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. So the Callaway representative met me at the driving range in the middle of winter, and under heated stalls, I was tested with my irons and wedges and fairway woods, hybrids, driver, the whole 9 yards, and exactly to spec what I needed, and I had it shipped immediately, which was awesome. I have since had a chance to go to Carlsbad, which was an incredible opportunity. So the headquarters of Callaway is located in Carlsbad, California, and that was just a neat experience to go to Callaway headquarters. And my equipment was fantastic. I've been hitting it better than I ever have, you know, after 17 years. So I've just been. It was a great transition, and Callaway has been extremely supportive. And not only did I switch my equipment, I also switched to Callaway apparel and Callaway footwear, which was pretty exciting. I'm actually in the process right now of booking a photo shoot with Callaway apparel. So that's run by Perry Ellis to do for their shoot for their 2018 catalog.
Nice.
What an opportunity that is, that, you know, I've never had that, the chance to be in a catalog for a golf equipment company. So that was pretty awesome. So I'm excited to be doing that.
So I know that our listeners are chomping at the bit because they're like, okay, let's get down to business and let's get some information from this gal as to how we can get the ball to go further. And so here's the first question. When you went to Callaway, did you add yards right away due to their clubs, or do you feel that you got more yards out of those clubs than you did when you were with Nike?
So what was interesting is my ball speed had gone up. And so, you know, numbers in long drive were very, very focused on two numbers, ball speed being most important in my opinion, and club head speed. My ball speed, with keeping the club head speed the same, my ball speed went up, which just added to extra yards. So yes, for me, my yardage did go up because my ball speed increased immediately. So that was really exciting. What was another challenge wise is the Epic driver goes down to an 8.5. So in regular conditions, that is my gamer, that is my go-to at World Championships. But if faced with headwind, there's an LD head, a Callaway XR16 that I can set down actually to a 4-degree head. So it's a 5-degree head that I can go down to 4 degrees or up to 7. So I have lots of different options, even if I'm faced with tremendous headwinds.
Now, when you do that, and you're using a lower lofted club, what is the launch conditions when you're making impact, and what is the rise of the club through the ball?
Well, what's interesting is that, especially in long drive, you really want to hit up on the ball.
Yeah.
So, my attack angle is about a +6, which is really quite high. But that's where we get the distance as long drivers. You'll see that we all have positive attack angles. And you're looking to keep that spin rate, low in that, 2,300 RPMs. And, I look for like a 12, 13 degree launch angle. Those are some of the numbers that I'm looking for. I use an Acro golf shaft. So I play it out so the USGA allows a 48-inch cap on all equipment, except for putters, I believe, can be longer, just not anchored.
Sure.
So we always, what's been really awesome, so the Golf Channel has purchased our federation several years ago. So it's the World Long Drive Association, and it's owned by the Golf Channel. And they made sure that all of our clubs were conforming to USGA standards and measured in a USGA standard way. So that's been awesome. This past 2017, we've been measured how a USGA club would be measured, which is great, because a lot of people say, well, yeah, you guys hit it so far because you hit illegal equipment. No, we do not. Our clubs are tested upon arrival, both at tour events and at our World Championship. That we are made sure that our not only our heads are on the conforming list, they do random core testing on our driver heads, and then also all our clubs must be 48 inches or less, which of course mine is. It's the other funny thing with shafts. I think this is really important for your listeners. I run into guys all the time that are like, oh, hey, Lisa, yeah, I hit it so far. I hit a double extra stiff shaft. And I kind of giggle sometimes because actually, for maximum distance, you want to be hitting the most flexible shaft you can control. So I actually went down to a stiff, and as long as I can control that stiff, I'm hitting it longer than my extra stiff because it gives it that little extra whip. Now, if it's too flexible, you'll find that it's like a spaghetti noodle and you're all over the place. Right. I find that with women who are actually quite athletic and strong and take a good rip at the ball, if they're hitting a women's flex shaft, often it's their errant shots aren't because of technique. It's a lot has to do with that their shaft is too whippy.
Sure. Well, it changes the MOI on the shaft, or on the club. So if they're just a little bit off of the sweet spot, that if it's too flexible, that shaft is going to twist a little bit. That face is going to open or close depending upon whether they hit it towards the face or towards the toe or the heel.
Exactly.
And now that's going to affect their shot dispersion. And of course, in long drive, you want to hit it as long as you can, but you got to stay in the grid. So
you bet you do.
So if you're out of that grid, it's no good. It doesn't count.
And we had a gentleman at the World Long Drive Championships, phenomenal, Mitch Grassing from Canada, came second in the world, and he had the chance to win the world title, but he didn't keep it in the grid in his final round, and extremely talented. But not only do we have to hit it far, we definitely have to hit it straight.
Sure. So accuracy, as you said, for shafts, the best thing to do is get as much flexibility as you possibly can, and still keep it in the fairway without hitting errant shots when you do miss a little bit and you're not hitting right on the sweet spot to maximize your smash factor.
Yeah, like in long drive, we get 8 balls, 3 minutes to hit 8 balls, and they count the longest one. But when you're playing full golf and you hit it out of bounds, you're laying 3 off the tee. So it's really important, especially when you're playing full golf, to make sure that accuracy is dialed in addition to distance.
Yeah, I totally agree. So for tee height, what is the tee height? Because I know that, I see most long drivers, they tee the ball pretty high. The average player doesn't tee the ball real high, at least not as high as a long driver does. So what's the average tee height that they're using out there?
I I would say 3¼ inch tees are the average tee height that you'd probably see out there for the most part. When I teach clinics with regular golfers, I tell a great rule of golfers. Great rule of thumb is you want to see at least half the ball over the back of the driver. When I look behind someone as they're setting up, if I can't see that golf ball, good luck getting that up in the air. Good luck hitting up on it. So that's why I want to see half the ball. I will caution your listeners to please don't start with the entire ball over the driver like they would see in a World Long Drive Association event, because again, we're trained to hit it on the upswing. A lot of golfers who aren't ready for that yet will go right underneath the ball. They'll pop it up and maybe even put a scuff mark on the top of the driver, also known as an idiot mark, which is not a good badge of honor to have.
Right. No, I agree, and I've seen them do it. I've seen them do it with those high rubber tees on driving mats. I think that usually the taller ones, they're just too tall.
Yes.
And then the next one down is usually too short. So it's
that's why I love the plastic tees that I actually tried. I bought one, a tee that you can put a tee into, and then you just adjust your own tee height to that. And then whenever I'm at a mat or range, I pop my own tee in, use that, and then make sure I take it home at the end of the practice session.
Yeah, we had a gentleman on the show a little while back who actually was the inventor of T-Claw. Have you ever heard of T-Claw?
Oh, yes, I sure have.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in that, you just kind of turn it into the mat. It grabs onto the mat, and then you can put different height tees in it, normal tees. Which is great. Which is a lot better than hitting off. He calls it the rubber tube.
That's funny. It's true. That is what it looks like.
But it is. That's kind of what it is. It's like a rubber tube.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So how about ball position? What when you set up, and also to kind of put this in two questions, ball position and stance width in relationship to how wide, because I see a lot of players want to get really, really wide. And sometimes that can restrict their what we call workhorse, or their core, and not allow them to really get through the ball. So what do you think is a good stance width? And in relationship to your front foot, what about ball placement?
Yeah, I think that this is absolutely vital. Again, I teach this in my clinics all the time. I find that golfers don't even realize it's happening, but their ball position starts to sneak back in their stance till it almost comes in the middle of their stance. Well, once you could be losing 15, 20 yards when that ball position sneaks back that far. So a very simple technique that I teach golfers is you want to stand with your feet together as if the ball was in the center of your feet, and then simply move your back foot. And if you do that, the ball position will always be on the instep of your lead foot. Another thing that I think is absolutely vital for golfers, especially those looking to hit it a long way, is to fan the front foot. So after I put feet together, balls in the middle of my feet, move the back foot. My next move in my pre-shot routine would be to fan my front foot to about 11 o'clock or a 45-degree angle. And what happens there, that allows you to clear the hip easily at impact. So as we all know, what leads to distance is the ability to make a good turn, to create coil and torque. So I find as you're coming down in that downswing, if that foot is slightly flared, it takes a lot of pressure off that lead knee. So anyone who has knee issues, even back issues, this is going to help. But it allows you to really get that core engaged and really make a hard turn because that foot is slightly flared. So ball position, in addition to flaring that front foot, will absolutely lead to more distance. And then in terms of, you talked about the width of a stance. Now,
yes.
I do think I am a fan of a wider stance. I do agree some people get too wide and that's restrictive, but I think slightly, at least shoulder width is where I'd like to see golfers, and maybe even slightly wider than shoulder width. But in my opinion, you don't want to go much more than that because, as you said, it does restrict that ability to make a good turn.
Right.
What leads to distance? Yeah,
I see a lot of guys. Not to interrupt you, but I see a lot of guys who think they're at shoulder width, and they're even wider. And I say to them, "Is that the width of your shoulders?" And they go, "Yeah." And I go, "Don't flatter yourself. Your shoulders aren't that wide, pal." Yeah.
And what women do, I would say 80% of women can't hit it over 200 yards because what happens with women tend to be a little bit more flexible than men. And so women tend to be arms lifters versus turners. So women lift and then all they can do is drop. And so I think that if we can get women turning, the turn is absolutely so key and important for men and women to make that good turn. But having a solid base is important. Base and balance is absolutely important for when you are beginning to make a good turn. So that's where it's important, but not, again, I wouldn't go much wider than shoulder width.
So as an explanation of shoulder width, okay, because everybody has a different idea of what shoulder width is.
Yeah.
Is it the outside of the feet, even with the outside of the shoulders, or is it the ankles, even with the outside of the shoulders?
For me, I like to think of outside of the feet to the outside of the shoulders. Okay. That's kind of where I set it up. That's my kind of, because I do like measurable things that are measurable. So for me, that's easy. And I find I've never had to go wider than that. But that flared foot is so important to do. But that's how I would recommend your listeners set up.
Yeah, I agree with the flared foot because it opens that front hip flexor and it really allows you to stop the resistance on that front leg.
Absolutely.
Where it's going to put stress on ACL, stress on hip flexor.
As I said, knee injuries. Yeah.
Players will spin out sooner. They won't be able to, they won't lateral shift as much. So those are definitely some great tips. So what do you do and how do you practice on building club head speed or to add club head speed to a player who is existing, wants to add more speed?
Yeah. Well, some of the things that I'm doing with my coach. So I work with Paul Horton. He just actually won Coach of the Year for the PGA of Alberta. He'll be at the PGA show in Orlando in January, where he'll be up for Coach of the Year for all of Canada, which is exciting. And he's had 32 of his juniors have gone on to full ride NCAA scholarships, which is pretty cool. And so when I'm working with him, we work on adding more speed, one of the things he loves is old school, the swing fan. So what he'll do is, he did this with some of his NCAA students. He had them do 10 sets. So he'd have his students do 5 sets of swing 10 times with the swing fan as hard as humanly possible, then switch to either a shaft with no head on it or an alignment rod, and make 10 fast swings with that, take a break, and then repeat that. And so that you do 5 sets of that. He said within 2 to 3 months, his students were gaining 3 to 5 miles an hour club head speed, and typically 1 mile an hour club head speed leads to ballpark 3 yards, about 2 to 3 yards per mile of an hour club head spead. So those are some substantial gains. So that was something that I was doing in my off season. So again, anything that you're working with something a little bit heavier and then something light, like that alignment rod or a shaft, I think that's been really helpful. I think anything that works on your core strength, like to help make you fast, anything to help make you fast. So I like anything to work on oblique training. So whether it's working with a med ball with obliques, any core strengthening that you could do, but it's also about fast twitch muscle fibers. It's about moving fast, and so you can train yourself to be faster. It's about training for speed. So that you have to make those swings again as hard as humanly possible that you're swinging, and trying to, and truly that your goal is speed.
Right. So now that we're moving into the off season in your area, and we know it already is because before we were on the air, you kind of showed me there's snow out there on the ground already where you are.
Snow on my deck.
Of course, there'll be snow on the ground. Not where I am, but there'll never be snow on the ground where I am. But in the States, there'll be snow on the ground when this airs, which will probably be sometime in December. So what do you do when you're in that situation in the off season to stay fresh?
Okay, well, first thing, I think this is really important for golfers, is that I believe in an off season. And when I say off season, I don't touch a club. So when I finished I would say my last event was Canadian Thanksgiving, which was about October 5th. So that was my last event. I really haven't touched a golf club since then, and I won't. I've done the odd clinic, but other than that, I'm not out practicing or hitting balls. And I won't until January. And I find by taking that little bit of a break, your golfers who are in, whether they're in a sunny locale or the snow on the ground, taking that break is a good thing. But in that time, instead of hitting balls, work on your golf fitness. This is when I think people should work on getting strong. So work on some of that heavy lifting that you wouldn't do, again, during competition season, some of your heavy lifting, some of your speed and strength training. Yoga, huge fan. Off season is a phenomenal time. If you've never tried yoga, yoga is about flexibility. And again, we talked about what leads to distance is the ability to make a good turn. The more flexible you are, the longer you can hit it. Jamie Sidlowski, he's a 2-time world long drive champion. He's actually left the world of long drive to vie for hopefully a card one day on the PGA Tour. And he's 5'10", $165, and hits it over 417 yards. Why? And it's because it's about being flexible, being very flexible and strong. So I tell people, if you have snow on the ground, number one, use this time to work on your strength and conditioning for the golf season. And then number two, starting in January, I'm really lucky. In Calgary, we have heated golf facilities. So I go to the Golf Canada Center. There's heated stalls, so up to about -10 Celsius. I'm not sure what that is Fahrenheit, I must admit. It's below freezing. It's below freezing
cold.
For sure.
It's
cold. But I can go out and hit balls and feel like a warm chickadee under there. Also, we have golf domes, so it's about 110 yards long where you can still hit inside. And again, you're working on your swing. I tell people, if you're looking at making a swing change, do it in the off season. You don't want to be making a swing change in the spring or summer. If you possibly can work with a golf coach and work on a swing change in the winter, you'll be so much happier. Because the problem is, I find when you go through that swing change, you go out onto the golf course and things aren't going well. So what do? You revert to your bad habits.
Yes.
So this is the time, I think, to seek out your PGA professional to get some lessons and to work on that. So I think, and that could be done even into simulators. You don't necessarily need, an outdoor driving range or even a golf dome.
Sure, absolutely. Because then you're not actually playing a round of golf. You're working on mechanics, and you're working on a feeling. To create the path that you want to create, and then maybe try to build club head speed, and then try to build a little bit more accuracy in your ball striking, whether it's your driver right down to your wedge, because we all know that if you want to gain more distance, accuracy on the club face is paramount, because it transfers the energy from all that club head speed more into the ball, so then it ups the ball speed. And that's really what we're interested in, is a higher ball speed. Yeah,
you nailed it. What I do is when I train, especially with driver, I take a foot spray, Dr. Scholl's foot spray or any type of foot spray, do a light mist on the face of my driver, and then I'll hit my ball. Then immediately I'm looking, where on the club face did this strike? And again, I'm looking for center of face contact. And if it's on the toe, the heel, low or high on the driver, I could be losing, again, 15 to 20 yards. So every time, even at World Championships, if you ever see me competing, as soon as I've hit the ball, the first thing I look at is the club face. And I can see it, and you'll even see me kind of lick my thumb and give it a little wipe before I do my next shot, because I absolutely want to know where I'm striking that ball. If you want to gain more distance, it's so important that you know where you are striking on that club face.
Yeah, I mean, it's club face awareness. So when you, if you do that enough, you can begin to feel when you don't hit it exactly on, and you can start to call it before you look at it.
Absolutely.
And you hit it and say, where did I hit it? I think that was a little bit towards the toe. Then look at it. Or if you're on a TrackMan or on a Foresight or something like that, especially Foresight. Foresight is great for seeing exactly where you struck it on the club face on that unit. So, and then you can kind of look at that and then start to understand, correlate that feeling with center face contact, because that's what's going to get you better center face contact is that connection to the ball when you make contact. If you have no idea where you're hitting it on the face, then it's going to be pretty tough to find the center of that face.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you have set up for the off season? Are you going to be doing anything at all as a clinic or anything like that, or appearances?
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm very excited. I'll be coming stateside in 2 weeks here. One of the things I'm passionate about doing is sharing my story of how I went from a 30-plus high-handicap recreational golfer to now the 8-time Canadian long drive champion. So I'm going to be coming to Savannah, Georgia for my first trip to Savannah, which is exciting. And I'll be doing a keynote speech at an insurance conference there, and then flying to Niagara the week after, actually, to do another talk. I'm also very excited to be I've been starting to do some clinics with Golf Town. So Golf Town is Canada's largest golf retailer. It would be much like your Golf Galaxy or PGA Superstores.
Sure.
And so I've done about 8 or 10 clinics in the Ontario area, Alberta area. And the hope is that I'm going to be signing a deal in February of 2017 to go to all 48 stores across Canada and do clinics for women to help women learn how to hit it longer, straighter, better. And we want to bring more women into the game, and we think women will help bring more juniors in. So I'm very, very excited about doing that. And of course, heading down to the PGA show. I'm also a golf journalist, so I write for Inside Golf magazine, and I'll be representing them at the PGA show and talking about what's new and hot for 2018. And I'll be doing a golf travel trip to Kauai, actually, with my family in February. So, I'll be starting in January. I'll be getting to hit down in Florida in January. I'll do February. I'll be hitting in Hawaii. In March, I'm going to be running my golf school. I do an annual golf school in the United States, a 3-day golf school. So March 8th to 11th, I'm doing a 3-day women's golf school in Las Vegas, Nevada. So
nice.
What a fantastic and great city that's going to be. And so, so it's great that I get to have a chance to come down to the United States, escape my cold, snowy winter, and be able to still work on my game.
So how can all our listeners find out all the information of your schedule and things and places where you're going to be, appearances? Can they just go to your website?
They sure can. www.lisalongball.com. And I've got my schools on there, my instructional video. I do corporate and charity golf tournaments, speaking engagements. So they can find all of that there and more.
That's great. Well, Lisa, thanks so much. I mean, your energy is infectious. I mean, it's... we were talking about that before we went on the air, and that smile is contagious.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be on Breaking Par again. Thank you for having me back, and I look forward to seeing you at the PGA show in January.
Yeah, I definitely am going to try to catch up with you this year. I know that a lot lot of times we just kind of like, you're going that way and I'm going this way. So yeah, 2 ships that are passing into the night. Yeah. And just kind of never cross the exact same path, but hopefully our paths will close this time. And so until we meet again, like we always say, do your best to keep it in the short grass.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Breaking Par with your host, Bernard Sheridan. Follow us on Twitter @BreakingPar and on Facebook @Par Breakers Golf Academy. Until next week, try to keep it on the short grass.